Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. So this weekend I thought we were going to be installing my downpipe onto my 2019 STI. We ran into some shipping delays. So what are we doing? We are going to get the car set up for open source and DimeMod 2.0. So the point of this video is going to be getting the necessary information for DimeMod setup, making sure our Tactrix cable works, making sure that we are able to read the ECU data, all of that good stuff, and actually kind of possibly getting started converting our AccessPort Stage 1 tune over to an open source equivalent if we hear back from Dimitri in time. So, how do you actually get started with DimeMod 2.0? Well, this is how I did it. So we're just going to get on Google. We're going to Google DimeMod 2.0. We see ecuresearch.ru. This is the home of DimeMod 2.0. There's a couple different steps here. So we are going to just open up this more info here. Brings it to a Google Doc. This document has a ton of great stuff in it. What we are mostly concerned with right now is the common info section. So this mod is suitable for specific Subaru ECUs. I do believe the 2019 USDM STI applies to this restriction. I guess we'll see if it doesn't. Another thing I'd like to point out is the DimeMod 2.0 is specific to your car. So that is kind of the point of these steps, is we need to generate some ECU specific data that we can send to Dimitri so he can make a build of DimeMod 2.0 that is applicable to our car. Now for that reason, in the event that you need to get your keys replaced or reprogrammed, you will need to go through this process again so that the car functions correctly. Dimitri does outline that process down at the bottom. So let's actually get started here. We're going to just follow these steps. I have gone through this before, but we're going to go through it again just so you guys can get kind of the actual experience here. It's going to take us to this Russian site. I didn't know what was what here, so I used Google Chrome to translate it for me, and I clicked on download all. Now, I do want to preface this entire process. We are downloading and running executables off of the internet and just trusting that Dimitri is not doing anything nefarious. My risk level is pretty low. I'm on a segmented network slice for my home network, and I have a laptop that is formatted and isolated specifically for this tuning software. So kind of adjust this for your own risk level. Alright, so it's going to download. We're going to get RomFlasher Remote, and let's take a look at that guy. So RomFlasher Remote, you can see that I've already downloaded it, but we're going to take the one I just downloaded, put it on the desktop, and then I'm going to use 7-zip, and I'm going to extract it here. And I believe this is actually 2 zips, if I recall. Okay, so unzip all the things, and we should end up with the Subaru RomFlasher Remote executable in a folder with a bunch of DLLs, some Java stuff. Open this guy up, and we have Dime SPB RomFlasher Remote. So some details for the connection. Since I am using Tactrix, when we get out to the car, we'll be using OpenPort 2.0 for our connection. Dimitri does outline the laptop needs to be connected to internet, so this is the host and port it's going to be communicating over. There is an identification button to make sure that we are able to connect to the ECU and that it is reading the car correctly, and then the get DimeMod ECU link data that will generate the data specific for your car so that Dimitri can make a build for your car. So before we run out to the car, I do want to take another look at his document here. This is not necessary for this first step of getting the ECU link data for Dimitri, but while we're here, I figured we might as well do it. Dimitri has a custom build of RomRaider that adds some parameters for DimeMod and allows it to read DimeMod DTCs. So we're going to go ahead and get this guy. This is in a Google Drive. There's a Linux version. There's a Windows. I believe this is probably a Windows portable version, meaning you download this, unzip it, and there is a RomRaider executable inside, I assume. And then there's an executable where you can actually install it as a program on your computer. I'm going to opt to download the executable and install it as a program. Google recognizes what we're doing right now could be sketchy, so you're going to have to just agree. And then Chrome is probably also going to tell us, yep, that this is possibly sketchy and we need to download the unverified file. All right. So check our downloads. There we go. You can see that I've already gone through this before, but like we've been doing, we're going to open up the one that I just downloaded. Windows also understands that we might be doing something sketchy, so we're going to have to go to More Info and Run Anyway. Next, accept the terms of the license, the path of install. Now I've already installed this, so it's going to ask me, do I want to possibly overwrite? If you have a different version of RomRaider installed, I would highly suggest that you go to that location, see Program Files x86, RomRaider, and you delete this folder. You know what, let's just do it. Alright, delete that folder. Now we can come back here. I'm going to do no, and then I'm going to click next again, and it's going to say that the target directory will be created since I just deleted it. So this is essentially a fresh install. Not sure I need the source files, but I have all the room in the world on this computer, so I'm just going to include them. I'm going to create a shortcut in my start menu, and I already have a shortcut on my desktop. This shortcut will work with this new installation, so I'm not going to check that guy. We're going to do next. Now, if you don't have a Java runtime, applicable Java runtime installed, it, I believe, is going to tell you you need to do that. Make sure you install the 32-bit version of the Java 8 runtime and not the 64 bits. All right, installation was completed. Start this guy up. I do not have ECU definitions. I'm not going to do that right now. But we can see that we're on RomRaider version 100 DM 2.0. If we go back and look at his reference, you should see DM20 suffix in RomRaider window. Perfect. So we got that set up. Nothing else in here is relevant for the installation, I don't think. It's just going to go over how to, some custom sensors you can hook up, what that looks like, and then outlines a bunch of the functionality that is available through DimeMod. So definitely read through this at your own leisure, but not applicable for this initial installation. So this got me the first time I did this because I had not connected my Tactrix cable with my car before. Go to Tactrix website. And if you do not download ECUFlash for your operating system, you will not have the drivers on your computer to be able to communicate with your car, and you will get errors from his ROM flasher remote utilities. Took me a little while to realize that I was missing the drivers. Additionally, you'll be using ECUFlash to download the ROM to send to Dimitri. So at this point, we have our ECUFlash and drivers installed for our Tactrix cable. We have the ROM flasher utility from Dimitri so that we can get our ECU data, and then we kind of future-proofed ourselves and installed his specific RomRaider build so that we can interact with his DimeMod 2.0 features. So now we are going to go ahead and run out to the car, and we are going to generate this ECU data and download the ROM for Dimitri. Additionally, if your car is on AccessPort, a Cobb AccessPort tune right now, you need to bring the car back to stock before you're able to do these next steps. You will have to actually unmarry the AccessPort from the car so it has a factory tune on it before you are able to do these steps. I did verify that in email with Dimitri before I started this process. All right, let's run out to the car. All right, y'all, we made it out to the car. It is absolutely frigid out here. It is snowing once again in Colorado. So next step, regardless, we need to flash the car back to the stock ROM before we can connect the laptop and generate this ECU data. To get back to stock, we have to actually unmarry it. So we are going to go ahead and go through with that. That's not good. Well, I guess we're just gonna have to YOLO this one, guys. The computer, the hard drive that I set up the AccessPort with originally, that had AccessPort Manager on it and possibly a copy of the original tune, has been formatted and has Linux installed on it. So obviously the Cobb AccessPort itself, for whatever reason, lost its copy of my stock map. So before I clicked the button, I looked it up real quick, and I guess Cobb has a system where they know, due to the ID on the car, what map it should have, and it might be a little bit different, but I don't really have a choice. So let's go ahead and unmarry this AccessPort and put it back to stock and see just what happens. Okay, uninstall successful. Alright, y'all, so we've got a brand new Tactrix OpenPort 2.0. Let's get this guy open. Alright, you'll have to excuse me as I try to figure out how to film this, guys. Nothing else in there. Sticker. I don't even know. And our USB cable. Let's get this guy plugged in. Alright, so we've got a mini USB plugs into the top, and then of course our actual USB that will go into our computer. Alright, y'all, got it plugged in. Got lights on. We're going to take our laptop and we are going to get our USB cable plugged in. Get our laptop opened up. So now this is very important at this point. You need to make sure that your car has a charged battery and that this laptop you're using to connect to the car is either connected to power and or has a fully charged battery. If something goes wrong while you are reading the ECU, there's a chance you could brick your ECU. And Dimitri does have an unbricking ECU service, but I don't think anyone wants to deal with that. All right, so we are back in the car, or rather we're back recording on the laptop screen. We have our Tactrix cable hooked up to the car. We're going to put the car in accessory. And we are going to open up his ROM flasher remote. Like I said, connection, OpenPort 2.0. And we are connected to Wi-Fi, so I'm going to click connect. And we are connected, ready for automated operations. I'm going to click on identification. And it is going to read our ECU ID and our VIN across K-line and CAN. CAN is also going to give us a calibration ID and CVN, whatever those mean. This is the point where if you have not installed ECUFlash and the Tactrix drivers, you are going to get an error there, and it will be very confusing. So make sure you have that stuff set up. So now we have successful identification. Everything looks good. I'm connected to power. My car's got plenty of battery. I'm going to click on Get DimeMod ECU link data. Now it is going to ask for a confirmation. You're going to want your VIN handy because it asks you to verify your VIN later on in the process. So make sure you have that handy. We're going to click yes. And it is going to go through the process here, and it is going to read the ECU. And then it's going to actually, I'm not sure what it's doing, but you're going to see, yep, your SI drive and your diff and your lights. Those various things you see happen when you flash the car, you will see happen during this process. First time I did this, it went through the kernel magic multiple times. I'm not sure if it is just doing it to compare to make sure it's getting appropriate data each time, or what exactly is happening under the hood here. But it takes a few moments, so we're just going to kind of sit here and wait for it to happen. All right, so now at this point is where you need to verify the VIN and make sure that the VIN/frame number corresponds with your vehicle. That is correct for mine. And here we go. It's going to spit out the 9 lines that Dimitri requires to make the build for your ECU and car. So what you're going to want to do now, at least this is how I did it, created a text document. JD, I believe I did James Doyle, 2019 STI. And then I'm going to copy these lines. I'm going to take the dashes with it. You probably don't need to, but take that, put it in this text file, save it, close. Okay, at this point we are good for the DimeMod ECU link data stuff, so we can go ahead and, if you want, you can clear the log window and disconnect and close. So now we need to get the actual ROM off of the car. So we are going to open up ECUFlash. And if you have not already done it, you'll need to select a vehicle type. Yeah, and now we've got the read from ECUFlash's memory. So this is the actual ROM. And this makes sense. It's already in the on position because we are reading from it for the DimeMod ECU data. So now we're just going to do OK. We're going to get some more flashes and beeps on our dash. And it is going to read the stock ROM for the car so that we can send this information to Dimitri along with that ECU link data that we got from his utility. This doesn't take too long. We'll just hang out and kind of wait. Operation completed successfully. If we are done with the ECU, we can turn the ignition off. All right. Unknown ROM image. So we don't have any ECU definitions, so it doesn't know what to do. We can abort using the ROM. We can continue with no definition, or we can use the wizard to create a new definition. So all we want is to save this ROM and send it to Dimitri. So we are going to choose this middle option. And now at this point we can do File, Save ROM As. And you can see I've already saved one in here as my 2019 STI, and then that's the last 4 of my VIN. You don't have to do it that way, but that seemed to make sense to me. We'll just do 2 as a structured ROM file, and we will save that guy. And we can see that it saved it to this location. So now what we want to do is we need to put this in a format where we can send both of these to Dimitri. So I created a new folder. James Doyle 2019 STI. And then I'm going to put this text document that we created earlier inside, and we are going to grab the ROM, C users James app data roaming. So I believe actually we also see it. Yeah, we can see it here in recent files. So let's just leverage that. Copy it over there. There we go. Now we've got our text document with the ECU data. We've got our ROM itself. Now to be able to send this to Dimitri, we need to zip it up. 7-zip. Add to zip. And then this is what you will send to Dimitri. So I sent mine to him earlier today. I have not heard back. We will reconvene when I hear back from him and go through the next steps. See you soon. All right, guys. So it's been 5 days. Let me double check my email. Okay, so I sent the files to Dimitri on February 15th. He sent them to me yesterday, February 19th in the morning. So let's talk a little bit about what he sent real quick. It's actually, yep. All right, so what he sends, he will send you various definitions for the car for ECUFlash, ECU Edit, and RomRaider. He will send you Imperial versions, Imperial unit versions of those for those of us in the United States. And then he also sends you a stock bin file, which should be a stock tune of DimeMod for your car. So that's what we're seeing here. We see various, RomRaider, RomRaider Imperial, ECUFlash, ECUFlash Imperial, ECU Edit, ECU Edit Imperial, the tune itself. And then it took me a minute to figure out that this top ECUFlash is a base definition for ECUFlash. If you're already familiar with that, you are ahead of me when I started this. But basically, ECUFlash definitions can build upon each other. So you can have a base, and then that base can have something build upon it, and then you can have something build upon it. And that is kind of how that works. So let's go ahead, before I start the car and actually flash this onto the car, I'll show you real quick what this looks like in ECUFlash for my setup. So here we go, we're in ECUFlash. I've opened up the bin file. I dropped the metadata. You can see here kind of how that hierarchy works for the definitions. So there's a 32-bit base that's included with ECUFlash, and then his base that I put into program files, x86, OpenECU, ECUFlash, raw metadata, read templates. And then I also put the specific definitions into that same location. And once I did that and I opened the bin file, bam, we've now got majority of stuff defined here. Now there is still some stuff that is not defined. So depending on what you're trying to do, that may cause an issue, that may not cause an issue. I have no idea what I'm doing, so we're just going to kind of figure it out as we go. So now at this point, Dimitri asks you to verify your injector scaling. So the way I did that is I have his opened up, and I scrolled through this list here, and I found fueling, keep going, injector flow scaling, open this guy up, 562.45. So then what I did is I went on the RomRaider forums, and I found someone who had the definitions for the 2019 STI. So if you remember, I created this file. This is the stock ROM of my car. I downloaded the definitions that were provided on the RomRaider forums, and now you can see that I've got that open, and this is basically the stock car. And I did the same thing. I found the fueling, injectors, injector flow scaling, 562.45. 562.45. So I'm not sure if that's what Dimitri means or not. Makes sense to me. I also compared the injector latencies, and they are the same. So Dimitri basically says to verify the injector scaling, flash the car, make sure the car starts, and if the car starts, then we're good, and we're going to settle up and send Dimitri payment. So for me, I'm not sure if this is the regular price or how this works. For me, it's $200. So we're about to flash the car, start the car, see if it runs. If it runs, we're going to send Dimitri the $200. I'm also going to ask him about the AF3 tables on here. Now I did a little bit of digging on the forums, and I found AF correction limits and target compensation, and these are related to the rear O2 sensor and how the rear O2 sensor adjusts closed loop fueling based off of the rear O2. Because I plan to run my wideband in my rear O2, so you need to disable the computer using the rear O2 to adjust closed loop fueling if you don't want any issues. So by default, none of this AF3 stuff was included in his definitions. I hunted some down off of the forums, and I believe these are the right ones, but I'm going to ask Dimitri once we confirm the car starts and everything is good, if he's able to provide those as well, just so I can kind of double check my work. One other thing that I want to note here that I found a little interesting: the ROM that he gives you is actually based off of a 2016. I don't believe that causes any issues. I believe, Dimitri obviously knows what he's doing. He's out here hacking the Subaru ECUs on his own, the new generation ones. So I'm expecting this to be fine, but I did find that interesting and thought I should point it out. So, I'll be honest, I'm nervous. I'm nervous to flash the car. I put it back to stock. I unmarried the AccessPort. Let's go ahead and turn it on. Yeah, that's the correct vehicle type. I've never done this before, so I assume that's what we want. Write currently loaded ROM to... Yeah, let's try this test write. That sounds safe. Okay. This is what I expect to see. Okay. Operation completed successfully, it says, so I guess there's nothing to do but to do it. Here we go. Alright, I mean, halfway there, things are looking good. Quite nervous, to be honest. Nerve-wracking thing to do here. Operation completed successfully. If I'm done, turn the ignition off. So now I guess like I said, I've never done this before. Let's open up RomRaider. Turn the car back to accessory. I did already add the definitions to RomRaider, so apparently not the logger definitions. Okay. I'm not entirely sure how that's supposed to work. I'm going to have to do a little bit more research on that, I guess. Alright. Took me a second, but we figured it out. So, we do actually have to go to the RomRaider forums, download the current logger definition package. As of the time of this video, that is 370. So you download that package, you're going to get 2 languages and 3 different types of measurements. I wanted Imperial English, so then I copied that to a location on my computer. And once I go into RomRaider and start the logger, which for whatever reason it seems to be broken after you do it once. Start the logger. You'll see this now works for me, but I had to go into settings, logger definition location, and I had to select logger imp en version 370. We have the car flashed. We have logger definitions. I changed the name, so I need to go back and set them back up. Let's turn the car on. There we go. Alright, so good. We've got everything showing here. So yeah, technically if I got battery voltage, yep, this seems, oh, and we've got DimeMod stuff. Let's start the car. It's time. Let's see if it works. Obviously the car started. Little concerning, we've got IAM at 0.5. Alright guys, so I figured out why the DAM or the IAM started at 0.5. It turns out on the stock ECU, the initial value on restart is actually 0.5, and it is configurable in the tables. So the more you know. But everything appears to be working. The car started. We're running on DimeMod right now. The math scaling is definitely wrong, of course. That's what's up next, but all right, well, so that's it, guys. That's how you get DimeMod 2.0 set up on your car. If you have any questions, let me know. Shout out to Dimitri for all the work he's done. Super appreciate it, man. Worth every dollar. Up next, we are going to tune the math scaling on the car and try and kind of recreate the Cobb SF Plus Stage 1 tune so that we are in a decent spot when we go to install the downpipe and the wideband and the oil pressure sensor. So be on the lookout. That video should be coming really soon. Super excited, guys. This is a huge step for this car in this build series. Wow, dude, it's like 15 degrees outside. You're out here riding your bike. More power to you. So yeah, like I said, super exciting. This is a huge step forward in the build, and something that I've just been so excited to get done. So with that, I think that is all I have. If you like this video, please throw it a like. If you are not subscribed and you want to be, please go ahead and subscribe. We're going to be doing awesome stuff in the coming videos. See you soon.